In 476 AD, a Germanic warlord forced a teenage emperor named Romulus Augustus to abdicate. Walking through the ruins of the Roman Forum today, it is easy to look at the scattered stones and conclude that the story ended here. For centuries, it has been widely accepted that this date marks the absolute collapse of Mediterranean dominance and the death of classical civilization itself. But 850 miles to the east, an unbroken line of emperors kept right on ruling. They kept organizing legions, collecting taxes, and stamping their own faces onto imperial gold. They outlasted the fall of Rome by 977 years. They were there to watch the rise of Charlemagne, the entirety of the Crusades, and the earliest sparks of the Renaissance. The famous fall of Rome is an incomplete story. The actual historical record shows a stubborn, amputated half of the empire that simply refused to die. The foundation for this survival was laid over a century earlier, in 330 AD. Emperor Constantine selected an ancient Greek colony called Byzantium to serve as a new imperial capital, officially naming it New Rome. He placed it directly on the Bosphorus. This narrow strait separates Europe from Asia, giving the city absolute control over all maritime trade flowing between the Mediterranean and the Black Sea. It was close enough to the eastern frontiers to quickly deploy armies against the Persian Empire, but safely distanced from the chaotic western borders, allowing it to maintain a highly secure, functioning tax base. Through geography alone, Constantinople was built to function as an impregnable, heavily fortified life raft while the rest of the ancient world drowned. At its peak in the 6th century, Emperor Justinian I launched massive military campaigns from that life raft, temporarily reconquering huge swaths of lost Western territory. Those military victories faded within decades of his death. His permanent influence on human civilization came entirely from his administration. He ordered the creation of the Corpus Juris Civilis, a massive codification of centuries of Roman legal rulings. This specific body of text remains the structural foundation for continental European legal systems today. He also financed an engineering masterpiece. The Hagia Sophia stood as the largest building of its kind anywhere on Earth, a physical manifestation of the empire's vast treasury. By the late 500s, the surviving eastern state was significantly wealthier, more populous, and more architecturally advanced than anything remaining in the crumbling West. But the empire could not isolate itself forever. In the 7th century, it faced a brutal gauntlet of invasions from a resurgent Persian empire and the explosive expansion of new Islamic caliphates. As this map shows, within just a few decades, they absorbed a staggering economic blow, permanently losing wealthy core territories across Syria, Palestine, and Egypt. The trauma of these losses forced a total reorganization of their society. To adapt, they officially replaced Latin with Greek as the language of government. They also instituted the theme system, a harsh administrative and military restructuring designed specifically to lock down and defend what little territory they had left. The pressure eventually boiled over into internal violence. During the 8th century, the empire tore itself apart in a civil war over iconoclasm, a bitter debate over whether venerating religious images like this one constituted idolatry. To survive the Dark Ages, they had to shed the expansive, classical identity of Old Rome and forge themselves into a hardened, highly militarized survivor state. Even that armor had vulnerabilities. In 1071, a devastating military defeat at Manzikert opened the empire's Anatolian heartland to Turkish conquest, permanently starving them of resources. Yet the fatal blow to their long-term survival would not come from Arab or Turkish armies. It came from fellow Christians. In 1204, the Fourth Crusade was originally assembled to march on Jerusalem. Instead, driven by unpaid debts and political manipulation, the Crusaders diverted their entire campaign to attack Constantinople. Western forces breached the sea defenses along the Golden Horn and unleashed one of the most thorough and devastating waves of looting in medieval history. This sacking permanently crippled the empire's remaining wealth and military capacity. By destroying Constantinople from the inside, the Crusaders shattered the exact buffer state that had spent centuries protecting Western Europe from Eastern invasions. By the early 1400s, the once massive Roman state was reduced to a single, isolated city, completely surrounded by the rapidly expanding Ottoman Empire. Their only true defense was psychological, the legendary Theodosian walls. This layered system of stone fortifications had successfully repelled every major siege for a millennium. The young Ottoman Sultan, Mehmet II, saw this independent Christian capital sitting directly in the geographic center of his territory as an intolerable threat that had to be eliminated. Mehmet brought an army that vastly outnumbered Constantinople's 7,000 desperate defenders. He also brought a terrifying new technology to bear against the ancient walls: massive gunpowder cannons. After 7 weeks of bombardment, Ottoman forces broke through on May 29, 1453. Chroniclers record that the final emperor, Constantine XI, stripped off his imperial regalia and charged straight into the fighting. His body was never found. The Roman Empire, in its most literal, unbroken, and continuous form, died that morning on the streets of its own capital. Today, we call them the Byzantine Empire, but that term was entirely invented by historians centuries later, simply as a convenient way to separate classical Rome from this grittier, medieval survivor. The sheer scale of their endurance is staggering. They bridged the gap from the ancient world straight through to the Renaissance. Despite the label history forced upon them, for over 1,100 years of golden ages, internal civil wars, and apocalyptic sieges, the people of Constantinople never stopped calling themselves exactly what they were: stubbornly, undeniably, Rome.